Leroy, good to see you, man. Thanks for the contribution. ChatGPT said Miami will win a title in 2030. Does it sound realistic or not?
That's realistic that it could happen. It's realistic that it could happen even before then. It's not unrealistic at all. Now, it's incumbent upon the University of Miami to have the level of achievement on the field to make that happen, right? So, realistic for me, is it reasonably possible? Yes, we recruit at a high level, blue chip ratio, Bud Elliott, all that. We have all the talent in the world, all of that. Sure. Got to get a little bit lucky. Got to have some things break the right way. But it's not like ChatGPT came back and said, West Texas State JUCO is going to win the FBS Division I national championship in 5 years. You're like, well, no, that doesn't make any sense. They're not even a real school, and if they were, they would be playing third division JUCO ball. So how are they going to go up 7 divisions? That is something that is not realistic or reasonable. But saying that Miami could or will, obviously will win. I'm not a soothsayer in that kind of a way. But is it reasonable, like very reasonably possible, that Miami, with the talent that we have, continuing to have elite level coaching, development, all these different kind of things, it's very reasonable that could happen. There's also reasonable explanations for why it could not, or would not, or whatever. But yeah, I don't think that's impossible. I think that it's reasonable even before 2030. It just, is incumbent upon Miami to perform to that level on the field.
Well, as somewhat of a betting man, or at least somebody that thinks like that, the betting odds are against just about everyone to win a championship on any given season, of course, because the odds say that the field is going to win the championship. So
yeah,
from that standpoint, it's difficult to predict anyone's going to win a championship in the next 5 years.
Right.
Let me ask you this question, because you've been looking at 9-3 as being a reasonable expectation for this team, not like this should be something we're shooting for, or this would be some major underachievement, disappointment. This is pretty much things are reasonable, but better is in a better record than that is certainly within reason.
Yeah.
The more that how much would they need to acquire? So we see them on the cusp of acquiring an all Big 12 defensive back to help shore up that position. Where else? You mentioned a few other guys that they're in the running for. Like, what kind of reasonable transfer portal additions? And I know that the Halsey kid, his status is pretty rare at this stage of the game in regards to the transfer portal. Most of these guys are just, backup pieces. But could they get reasonable additions that would cause you to be more optimistic about winning the conference, let's say?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's guys who can come and help. I know that people were excoriating me on Twitter for saying that all things being equal, I would elect not to bring in Trevor Pena from Syracuse if it meant him blocking Malachi Toney at slot. I stand by that. That's my belief. Miami's bringing in Trevor Pena for a visit, and looks like they could be squaring up to bring him in on the roster. I will root for Trevor Pena. I will go with that, even if it runs counter to like what my preference and thought would be. But is Trevor Pena, maybe at 80% of Xavier Restrepo, a guy who can get open, catch the ball, and keep the chains moving, which you need to do to stay on the field? Yeah. You have a little explosiveness to him? Yeah. Does he help raise the floor? Absolutely. Because without Trevor Pena, Trebor, Trebor, be like boy, the only experienced receiver is CJ Daniels, and he's coming off of a heel, from his last season at LSU. So I mean, he's a guy who's done it, but like there's really nobody else. So now you bring in Trevor Pena, you bring in a guy who's at least who's done it at the college level. raises the floor. So now you're thinking, okay, that 9-3 is a more firm 9-3, but with that floor being raised, maybe you go 9-2. Maybe you bring in a linebacker or two. Maybe you bring in somebody. Like, there are a couple of guys out there that can really, be positive additions and things like that. I don't necessarily think that they're super duper game changers. I don't think that there's anybody else in the spring portal who's going to make me think, from 9-3 to 11-1, like, Cam Ward, when I was, 7-5, proved me wrong. And then he transfers in. I say, oh, y'all just proved me wrong. I'm riding 11-1 because he's the best player in America coming back. So, I mean, I think that you can add, I think it would be in the aggregate, adding Halsey, adding Pena, adding insert linebacker here, adding maybe a rotational defensive lineman here, adding maybe another rotational wide receiver here, where that, mix would then elevate the outlook.
Makes sense. Falconer TRX, appreciate you being here. Of course, the U must go deep in the college football playoff before 2030.
From your lips to God's ears, I would love to see that. And, like, honestly, I mean, like, I'm ideating this live, but considering you always want to win every game, go undefeated for the rest of forever. I get it. If you win the conference and win a playoff game, you're in the semis. I think anything from there is house money, relatively. So I would say, I mean, like, my initial thought was like, okay, if you win one playoff game, anything from there. But if you get a low seed, like if we would have gone to Charlotte, lost, and played the first round, then you're only into the quarters, and, like, that's not really. But if you get to the quarters by winning in the first round or a bye into that, second round, and you win the quarterfinal game, and so your team is in the semifinals, I think anything from there, I think, first of all, that qualifies as a deep run, making it to the semis. Like, because there's only two in a possible, I mean, two in a play-in round, basically. So, or 3 rounds. So, yeah, I think that making it to the semis qualifies as a deep run, to your point. And I think that getting to that point is admirable. And then, again, I want to win every game 8 million to 0, but if you make it to the semis, anything from there is house money. It would be a tough pill to swallow if you made it to the semis and then you lost, regardless of, by 1 or a million. But, taking the 50,000 foot view right now, you know what I mean? And then looking at it, really, getting to the semis, boom. And then if you're able to do anything else, great, good, glorious, and wonderful. But yeah, a deep run, I would say. And I appreciate the comment, because it made me think, what is a deep, because I was going to say something earlier. I was like, what is a deep run? And then you heard me walk through it. So I think a deep run is making it to the semis. And I'm hopeful that, Miami is able to accomplish that, sometime even before 2030. So, it's within the realm of possibilities, but again, we have to make it happen.
I agree with the deep run definition. I think that's pretty reasonable. Sure, it can be argued, but it's one step away from the national championship game. And that's the deepest run you can make.
Right.
So yeah, that's a deep run by my standards. And then also, if you look at the college football playoff, we've had 1 year of a 12-team playoff. We've got 10 years of a 4-team playoff, and excluding a few little aberrations out there, like a Cincinnati getting to the Final Four because they were undefeated, and they didn't have to win any games in a playoff to get there. Other than a couple minor aberrations like that, you're living in a world of Clemson at their peak, and then basically Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan recently. That's the territory you're living in. That's Texas this past year. That's who you're living with at the upper tier of college football.
Yeah, and I mean, that's where we want to go. Juan Manuel. oh no, Syracuse got Angeli from Notre Dame, Fran Brown doing his sloppy second Supreme 25 version. I mean, yeah, Steve Angeli. I guess it looks like they're going to go with CJ Carr in South Bend, the grandson of Lloyd Carr, former Michigan coach, and that's who Miami will face in the opener when they come down here in week 1. And yeah, look, I mean, if you're talking about being an enticing place to, players, like Syracuse and what they did last year made Kyle McCord look like a college level quarterback and a damn good one. So yeah, no, I get it. And everything. Really interesting. Didn't hear much from Syracuse from them on the field. Fran Brown himself ran his mouth a lot, but not hearing a lot. Other than Tawana Manuel's other question, which followed that one up, why is Fran Brown losing all of his best players? Let Fran Brown tell it, because everybody else in America is tampering, and he has proof, and he's going to, blast it into the, onto the internet and into everybody's home. It's also interesting to me that they've been one of the most active teams in getting transfers in, but no, nothing nefarious about that. There's been no tampering. No. But anytime that anybody wants to leave his team, he's out there talking big shit. It's really, really interesting to me. But